Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
All right, we're live. Johnny, what were you saying about that hat? You said I didn't get you one?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I did.
I don't think so.
I think by the look on your face that you definitely
really
have one and
I
lost
don't.
it.
No, I honestly.
Really?
I don't have one. No.
Oh, I'll have to get you one of those.
Yeah, the Sitka camo.
The Sitka East Meets West ones. Yeah,
That's sick.
I kept a couple out just for special people, so maybe I can help you out. But you got the Timber Ninja one on, so that's not too bad either.
Yeah. I want to point something else out before we get started here too. So last year we did this podcast. Johnny made fun of me because I had a ricochet shot in Montana. So everybody was making fun of me in South Dakota because I gave myself a bad haircut. But Johnny missed a spot right here. If you want to show these guys.
What I did?
Whoa!
What, my hair?
He's growing a rat tail back there.
Move your hand. Move your hand, Johnny. Move your hand.
Oh yeah.
It's a little heavy there.
I don't know. Maybe it's just balding.
Well, I did cut my own hair, and my old lady was busy, so I was down there like this.
Mason did it for South Dakota, and you had this just stripe going down the back. Look like a skunk.
Yeah.
It was all the same color.
Yeah, but it was pretty rough. We had to make him put a hat on for it, but
That's the only place I got hairs back there. So I left a little bit.
yeah, you look cleaned up. You gave yourself a haircut.
Yeah.
You know, nice.
Oh, yeah.
You thought about trying the mustache out?
It's growing, Bo. I got to shave this.
Yeah, you got to shave the rest of it.
If I get desperate, maybe, you know.
Yeah, Mason had
it's
one.
early yet.
Mason had one in South Dakota, and he already went full beard now.
Yep.
Went back to it, but do you consider the rut stash lucky or not, Mason?
I had a rut stash for 2 different hunts. No, 3 hunts. 1 Pennsylvania hunt and 2 South Dakota hunts. And I shot a bunch of times. And I only got 1 deer out of all those hunts.
Okay, so not.
I go back to beard, I'm pretty deadly.
That makes sense.
But I shot my biggest buck with the mustache, so I'll give you that.
Yeah.
When do you start that? It's not the rut yet. I mean, we got a couple, maybe a week.
It's rut time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You gotta always be prepared for it.
Oh,
Because it can start at any time. You can't be having intel that's too late. You know what I mean? By the time rut starts, you missed it.
yeah.
So, just a thought. But anyways, so now to get rolling with the podcast here. So last year we did an episode that was just like this, sitting here at the table here, and is actually one of the most downloaded 2-part series that I had the entire time that I've ever had, I guess, in the podcast. So it was pretty good. So I figured I'd utilize you guys again and bring you back in, and it was fun just to hang out and talk. And actually, after that podcast, Mason called a shot, and he got his opportunity on the date that he said he would.
Yeah.
I believe that's how that worked.
Yeah, it took a second try on the buck, but I got my shot.
Yeah.
Put his mark on it the first time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bullseye.
And I guess before we get too far, I should say that since not everybody's watching on YouTube in the audio version, so we have Johnny Stewart here off to my right, and then Mason Martonik, and then my dad Joe Martonik. So we got the whole crew here, and by the time this goes out, it'll be right before the rut, so it'll be a couple weeks here. We're recording this on the 18th. Last year we recorded on the 20th, so we're getting pretty close to the same time of year, and it's Johnny's already once again 2 years in a row on the board in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Just out there getting it done. And you've been on some deer like pretty crazy so far.
Yeah, it's been a good year. In PA early, had some good areas. They're browsing, and with that hot weather, they were downloaded to creeks and browsing. It just spelled like a good recipe, And we got on a two of them hanging out in the same area, a real wide 10, probably maybe 160.
Yeah, real big deer.
You say that like so nonchalant, it's like 160.
I got to be honest, John. If there wasn't actual film of it, I'd have a hard time believing you with all the sightings you've been having.
You're probably right.
But you've documented it all.
Oh yeah, we got film.
Yeah,
I got Harry
been,
here.
He's been over there filming.
He's been filming me here all year, and we killed the one in West Virginia. Every time we went out, it was like, we did a little the intro, and it kind of like went as planned, up till this point. But every time we went out,
an unbelievable season for you so far for encounters.
It was great. And I had to bow back on a shooter at 50 and shot one in West Virginia, then a big wide one, and even last week in Ohio, we were heading up a hollow, and I said we're going to get set up on this hillside. It was before light, and just another 100 yards there. That's where they bed down. There's a blow down there, and we had to go 100 yards and get set up, and big deep snort. Right, I'm like, there he is. So, I don't know, man. We had a lot of good encounters, and I think it was because of the warm weather and being down low near creeks and browse. And now we're up here in PA and checked a couple cameras in that area where the browse is, and it's like dead and down low. Too, it's the cooler time of the season, and they're up higher, and the beach is starting to fall, and really might be tough. So we're going to actually maybe go back to scouting tomorrow. I don't have I was really thinking that area with that browse was going to be good even till until now, but it doesn't seem like
So
much
wait,
is happening.
there's no acorns there? That's all browse that you were hunting?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Well, no, we had an encounter with a big 6.
That was in Semi.
That was in a little patch of oaks. That was the first Saturday. He was probably 20, at least 20 inside, and he just had twos, big long twos, and his browse were pretty good, probably 4 to 5. We had him on a cell cam or a trail cam, not that summer, the summer before. Actually, it looked like he got a little smaller, but we were hunting a big 7 there, and we didn't see that. And his big 6, he just showed up eating acorns out on a point, and he laid down, chewed his cud, and Harry's like, is he getting up? I'm like, no, he's down for the count. And then I started, it was probably feeding for an hour. He laid right on that point, wind at his back, looking at the leeward side, pretty windy. And I don't think I had a grunt call, and I had Harry's water bottle, and I tied a string to it, tried bounce it on the ground like a deer walk, and he just looked up, and he's chewing his cud he's looking at us. But then I threw the water bottle at him just to get him to stand up. It was 45 yards. I didn't have a shot,
Oh, yeah. Were you trying to shoot him?
If he would have came in, I think for a 6, oh, yeah, he's wide as anything.
Oh, yeah. I saw the video on Instagram that you
He's
posted.
really
that
wide.
was a big bodied deer, and
Yeah.
he's just kind of an ugly looking thing, but
He's needed to be taken out of the herd. I think his genes are bad, but
Do you have any responding to calls this early season at all?
just the water bottle's all I've been using. I didn't have a grunt call. I said, man, I could use a grunt call right now. So I tried. Then I had a limb. I'm busted in a tree, and threw the water bottle, and he just lay there chewing his cud he was like looking at us, And then I climbed down the tree, and I started scratching the ground because we were getting down in here. It was probably 10 minutes of light, And then he's like, I got to get out of here. Some hoodlums over there making some noise. He said, I don't know what's going on. But, yeah, we seen that buck. It was like every time we went in the woods how I planned it. But I think I was just early season. Yeah, there's a little patch of oaks, and I think they're gone now. We were going to go over there, but I think most of them are rotted then. And just being around browse and water, and the West Virginia deer was just as close as I can get to having a deer tied to the tree. I mean, there was one single oak fallen. Further out the ridge down near the point, about 120 yards from that single oak, was a cluster of oaks, and they're loaded, and they're just not dropping. And we got near that single oak, the day before, and I think it was 80 degrees. And boy, did that deer move slow. They just move slow in that weather, but it dropped. What it was a ridge that went down, and there was some cut to the north, and they would always come out of that cut into the open woods, right? So the wind was blowing from the oak into that cut, so we didn't get to where we wanted to hunt that oak because our wind would go down in that cut. But since it was 80 degrees, no deer come out of that cut. There was a steep drop off, and there was a little bench down I could see on Spartan Forge. And then there was a creek. It was only maybe 150 feet down to the creek. But all the deer come up because it was so hot. They come up out of there. I never would have, I learned something like, wow, that heat's really making them live differently. Because last year, they would just pour out of that cut, and I couldn't hunt an east wind because it went in. So this year I went in an east wind, and we sat way back 80 yards from the oak tree, and I let my wind go into the cut, but it was a steep drop off to where I know they weren't bedded because it went like this, and then it was gradual out, downwind of that oak tree, and that's where they all bed in there. And so we set up here just to observe. Maybe they'd come this way. We seen 2 buck, 5, 6 doe under that oak. It was just like a herd of deer just milling, from 4:30 on. So I said, tomorrow night it was calling for a south wind, which wouldn't have been good, but south, I said, maybe we'll have to get on a low side of tree. Make a long story short, we got there the next night at 4 o'clock, and it was like 80 degrees. It was a due east again, due east. I said, well, this is a no-brainer. We'll let our scent blow down in that cut, and we'll watch that oak tree. And it was a little button buck. Then that buck come out at 5:15, just like, I looked at my watch, like, well, Harry, it's about time. I looked over the hill. Here you come, right up over the hill, right to that oak tree.
Oh man! So were you at that point with the wind due east, and you said you're letting it blow in the cut? Were you sitting right over top of that oak tree?
Yeah, downwind 30 yards.
Okay. Yeah.
And letting the wind go right in the cut, which I would have never did that last year. The cooler temperature, they all come right out of that cut. But it was a gradual cut, browse, and then there was no oaks last year either. So that was our main food source. They would come into them open woods, and they would walk that ridge line. And I think maybe a farmer 600-800 yards had a field. I think they had trails going up that ridge. Just the does would march up, then the bucks, and that's why I sat up the hill the day before, thinking, well, maybe that's still the case, as they're going to come out of that and just work our way up, and they'll be in open woods. But it was so hot. And
how did you know that was the only oak that was dropping? Were you scouting in there before?
I went in there September. I had to put a camera in August where I sat the 80 yards up the hill because I shot a doe there, or a buck there last year. He come out at a cut right there, kind of right in that area. So I went out, and I did, when I put that camera in August, I seen the single oak, and down on the point, I put another camera with the cluster oaks down there. I said, well, that's going to be the hot spot. I didn't really worry about the single oak. So then I went back like September 15th or something to check cameras. I said, well, I'll go in at noon. And I went in at noon, hotter time of the day. But when I got out of my car, I said, man, it's pretty cool for a September day. I said, man, they might be up there. So I got up there and I grabbed my camera where I shot my deer the year before, and I was heading down the hill. I had one single oak, and then my camera was on them cluster oaks, and I just went slowly. And at noon, I caught that 9-point, the one I shot, feeding under that single oak, and he never come up for air. His head was down, but it took like a video. It took him for a minute and 20 seconds to put his head up. So I was like, wow. And we got out there, and 2 weeks go by, the season rolls around, and I figured we got to get in there, and we got in there, and that single oak was definitely, when I saw that buck, I went down and checked my other camera at that cluster oaks. There wasn't an acorn on the ground, but that single oak, there was dirt under there, and I'm like, man. And I figured 2 weeks, the season's going to roll around. Oh, this one will be dried up. I'll be down at that cluster oaks. 2 weeks roll around, and we went in there, and that I didn't even go down to that other one because that thing was dirt. You know what I mean?
White oak or
no, red oak.
Red oak.
I'm pretty sure it was a red oak. I know the ones down lower are red oaks. But so yeah, that was weird. And I checked them the other day, and they're still not falling, them lower ones.
Wow.
And there's another deer in there, about the same size as the one I shot, and I got 2 tags. So I might.
Getting a little greedy, huh?
No.
I'm just kidding.
Got my other tag, but it was really wild. Just you learn shit. Just I would have never let my wind blow in that cut, but I'm like, well. But yeah, the first we hunted on and off for 2 weeks, like 4 days on, and it was a perfect season. Like everything where I thought they would be, they were. But now things are changing, and up here the beach are coming on, and the browse is, you've been eating briars all summer. You want a little something different if you can get it, acorns or maple leaves and whatever they might be. But see what happens from here. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny. Johnny and I were talking on the phone the other day, and I was like, we haven't started hunting. me, Mason, and my dad here. We were in South Dakota the whole first week, and then by the time you come back and everything, like we're, I feel like I'm just starting to I'm getting excited and just starting to get in the groove of starting to hunt here as of October 18th. And Johnny's got like a full season under his belt already. It's kind of funny. But Mason, you've been out a little bit scouting now, haven't you? Are you planning kind of for the rut at this point?
Yeah, I feel like I'm starting at ground zero right now, right? Like I was in the woods a lot in the spring, scouting in the spring, and then this all the way through summer up into my western hunts, I'd like next to nothing. I might have 6 hours in the woods.
Ooh, that's bad, Mason.
But I got a lot of good spots. I don't have a buck right now that I'm in love with, which is it's pretty refreshing to just go out and just try and shoot a mature buck. So I'm excited about that. So this weekend I'm just gonna really get the boots to the ground and try and figure something out. I have a lot of spots and probably bounce around a lot this year and see what happens.
Yeah, no, that's. I'll be interested to see how you feel about it, because you've been chasing basically a single deer for the last 4 years. It's nice to have something a little bit different. And, I'm kind of in the same boat this year, where there's deer I'd love to shoot, but nothing that I was telling you, Dad, that I was like, there's nothing that or I was telling somebody, I was like, there's nothing that just fires me up so much that I want to just go all in, which is a cool thing. At the same time, it's kind of stressful from the aspect of I have so many spots and I feel like I don't know where to start. I don't know where I want to be and where I want to go, and I have so many spots, and it's just that's kind of what I'm feeling right now. It's like I don't know. I don't have anything that I have some history with. I know where I'm going to be between October 27th and 30th. Around that time frame, I've got a spot that I plan on being at. But other than that, it's like I really don't know yet. And so that'll be kind of fun for us to do that. What about you Dad?
My cameras haven't been real active as far as bigger bucks. I did have some here in August on some food sources. I found some oaks that they're done now. We were in South Dakota when it was probably prime time to hunt them. Mm-hmm. I come back and waited a day and went in there, and there was nothing left. Not even a squirrel running around. But the history of my cameras, though, they usually don't start getting hot until that last week of October, as far as showing me what I'm going to try to target. I'm hoping some of these bigger bucks that I haven't been able to find this summer. Every year I try to find them in the summer, but they just kind of show up during the rut or during the pre-rut, and I'm banking on that on a lot of them. But some of these other good bucks that I did have on those oaks, I'm reaching out with cameras now, trying to find where they're coming from or where they may rut. And I have some ideas from doing my spring scouting in there, and I have some scrapes that I got to move these cameras off the food and get them down onto scrapes in that area, which I need to do that this weekend. So hopefully that turns up something good. I'm just kind of going off of camera history as far as the scrapes that get hot certain times of the year, and hopefully it pans out for me again.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, and it's probably good for people to hear what you just said about a lot of times you don't even have a deer you want to chase and stuff until that time frame, because I feel like you look at it and you think, oh, I'm behind. I don't know of a deer. I remember, Mason, I remember you with this before. You didn't know you had a deer to chase until you saw that. That was a big 10-point, or he might have had other point. Yeah, I think he had more than 10 points, but the biggest one you ever shot. You didn't know you were chasing him until you first saw him, and then the game was on for the next week or two or whatever. But
yeah, it's a matter of finding them, and it's, I think about some of my camera setups, and, I run them, some of them on scrapes year round, and you look at to date what I got on there. There's not even a shooter on some of them, but I know it's going to turn on. But if I was just reaching out, throwing a camera on a scrape and check it for a couple months and nothing there, I'd be pulling it, moving it somewhere else. But my camera history says not to do that.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at now. Like, I was really banking on him first week or so, and I was really hell-bent on that. Now I feel like that's what I'm going to do, start putting them on scrapes and kind of like you said, reach out. I know those deer that I was after, they're not far, but they're not doing the same thing. They're just, and I'm not just going to, I told Harry, so we're not just going to go sit in a tree and just, based off of what we knew a little about summertime, I said, I can't do it because we went down in there, pulled the first camera. I said, what do you think? He said, I'm getting a tree. I'm like, no, we'll go pull them other three. And it was like dead down in there. And I said, things are changing, man. We got to, go back to the drawing board, literally,
What are you looking for to get back on them?
I would like to find some scrapes or up in this area. I haven't hunted this area till this year. I just noticed the cuts in there, the herbicide spray, and it's gotten ripe here 2 years. So I moved in there hard, and I knew early season they were there. I do some spotting at night. There was always deer there, and picked them 2 good deer up. And so I'd like to find them deer, but man, there's a lot of up on the top. There's a lot of beech brush and beech trees, like 30-year-old. I mean, there's some smaller shit, but I mean into the 6, 8, 10 inch, and then like Joe said, the bigger ones. And they leave them when they do herbicide spray and different. They leave those, the big mature ones. But we just drove the roads and there's just beech nuts out the wazoo. Just like and it's beech brush and up on the top, and it's like they could be up there. And it's like I don't even know how to get to them, so I might have to go to another spot altogether. Some of my older spots that maybe have scrapes and stuff. So I'm studying Spartan Forage here before you guys got here, and probably in the morning I'll get up and, if I can't sit in a tree and just I hope a deer's there. So we might sit in the morning for a few hours, but I'm going to get some boots on the ground and
well, what's it take for you to, you say, you don't want to hope, but what's it take for you to be like, you feel like you're confident? Does it take the trail cam pictures? Does it take the sign, like a combination? What are you looking for that makes you be like, all right, now it's time to sit?
Yeah, I think
scout
the cameras, but also sign if you go check a scrape that, you had some historical, data with that. There's some good deer in the area. I'll get on that, and just if it lays out right, you're close to. I think you still got to be like these deer. I'm thinking they're probably laying up in that beech brush, chomping on beech all day. These big ones ain't ready to. I don't think there's some doe that come into heat around the 20s, but I don't think they're ready. All of them, most of them, they're just laying all day and just putting down scrapes at night. But something I just got to have that some type of feeling, a little bit of confidence. I think that I know. I got to tell myself that I know deer. There's a good chance, percentage-wise, that a deer is going to come through here before light or before dark, or early in the morning, maybe close to some bedding and where does are. But you just got to, there's a lot of different situations, but you just got to have some confidence. If I start hoping, to see a deer, I tell myself I'm getting out of here. I mean. Like, I got to know that the deer are using that and they're coming through, and it's a deer that I want to shoot to some degree, I don't know, odds or percentage, I don't know, but something, a little bit in your favor.
Yeah, what you said about the doe, though, is important because, I'm not, through my cameras through the summer here, I'm not picking up, some shooters or in some spots, but if I have a lot of doe, I'm noting that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why these bigger bucks do show up during the rut, so because them doe, they don't move like a buck, in my opinion anyways, or my experience. It seems like you have your doe families that stay. They may follow the food and relocate within a certain area, but, once you get where that's at, and, like you said, the beach, and if the does are in there, we know them bucks are going to come. Just a matter of when.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that makes sense, and I think you explained that well as far as like, it's a combination of things, and the thing you were saying about the hot sign with the scrapes, like, I think for me this year, as I'm transitioning and trying to learn from the last couple of years, one mistake I think that I was making was I was so hard on that historical data, which I still think that's super important, and those dates and everything. But if I get there and it's like there's no sign of them there, I can't just hope that it's gonna work out that way. It might, but I've been burned the last couple of years during times when I probably could have took advantage of it because it wasn't. Now, by the time you find it and it looks hot, you might be too late, but I think I'm kind of willing to risk that at this point and I'm not saying camera data, even just deer sign that's there and this great being tore up or there are those, like that for mostly thinking of pre-rut, kind of late October type time frames for that. The rut's a little bit different as far as that goes, but I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts, but. What about you, Dad? Like, what are you kind of thinking with that as you get into like late October and early November?
Well, I'm doing some scouting still. I've been out, probably 3 or 4 times so far since we've been back from South Dakota, and most of it's on the ground scouting and looking for the fresh sign to drop a camera, move cameras, checking cameras. I mentioned I do rely on the historical data, but you're right. It can burn you. It can definitely burn you. So you got to read the sign, leading into it, is it starting to heat up from the other side? Because not everything passes in front of the camera either. Mm-hmm. But if it's dead, I may put an X on that and may regret it later or maybe not. But,
or even come back and check it in a week.
Yeah.
It's hard to balance, too, with, is it just not happening yet and I got to be here when it happens, or is it not? They're just not here this year.
Well, then there's the other part of it too, is the access. I've said it before, is I've had I have cameras out there that I'm never going to hunt this year. They're a monitoring camera, and I might find one that's really hot. From my end of October to middle of November. Following year, I go in there for but if I don't have good access, this is like it. I kill the spot with my presence. I've done that before, and so. It's just playing off of, what's huntable, and if it's not, how can you get on the outskirts of it and make the best of it?
And still play off of that.
Yeah, and play off of it. They're going to be there, even though you can't be down in there. Where can you be? Mm-hmm. Where are they bedding? Where are they coming from? What's bringing them there? Where's the food source this year versus other years when things happen? What wind were they moving on? Looking at all that. And that's something I've been doing the last few nights here is, going through my data and the wind directions and just refreshing my memory on that, for, where and taking notes of where I want to be at what time and what winds, what stands, or stand locations, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that's hard as far as like, the other thing too that it's hard to know is like as far as the pressure standpoint. I mean, you can kind of see it, but one thing that we were talking about is there's so many more cameras out in the woods now, specifically cell cameras. Yeah. But one thing I was thinking about with it, because I was like, kind of disgusted to a degree of finding so many cell cameras and all this stuff. And I know a lot of it's, I talk about running a ton of cameras. It's probably half my fault. But I look at it, but actually I think you can look at that as a positive too, from the standpoint of, especially cell cameras. I feel like most guys aren't hunting spots that they have a cell cam unless they're getting deer on it. And here in the big woods, like, you don't get a whole lot of deer on it. So like you can, like, just because there's a camera there doesn't mean someone's hunting it actively. Mm-hmm. And I'd always come across a camera in the woods and be like, oh, someone's got this spot, and leave. The more I'm thinking about this, like there's this balance for me of like, someone found this spot. I don't want to hunt it. I want to be respectful to it. But at the same time, if you get a guy like me that's got 50 cameras out there, I don't own the woods. Mm-hmm. So technically, like, if someone's got a tree stand there, I leave it alone. But if it's like, okay, if someone's got a camera there and there's good sign around, there's no one hunting time, I'll probably hunt somewhere close to it and be okay with it. Like I've kind of come to that conclusion in the last few days based off of just what I've seen from that. But like that's tough to get past, and also tough to understand how much that's actually impacting them. Where I think cell cams are helping because people aren't in the woods as much, as far as they're not going and checking SD cards and putting that additional pressure on. That was something I've been thinking about, but I don't know. I just trying to understand like how that all throws into the mix of it. Like there's so many things like I just talked about in that podcast with Jake a few weeks ago. It was just like, logging coming in. You got a spot to be logged. One of my main spots after that podcast with Jake, I found out that it's getting logged, and like the herbicide sprayed the other cut that was next to it. I'm like, everything has changed. Like I felt really good about this area, and everything has changed, and that's just the nature of it. Yeah. I mean, it's just moving. And Mason, I mean, I know you hunt a lot of areas that have a ton of hunting pressure and stuff, and like, how do you work off of that, especially like as you come into the rut?
I mean, obviously, I try and avoid it if I can, but it gets to a point, too, where it feels like everywhere you go, there's other people in some of my spots. Mm-hmm. And so this year, I actually moved the areas I've been in the last couple of years. And when I say areas, it's a real big area, and I'll kind of have sections of it that I kind of focus on depending on where the deer is I want to hunt that year. So this year, there's no up-and-comers that I was really wanting to try and find and see what was going on. So I actually shifted a few miles, and it almost seems like the competition's worse. so I had 6 cameras in this kind of this new zone that I checked this past Sunday, and 4 out of 6 of my cameras were tampered with.
Oh, man.
So I think you get one bad egg in there, and they're pulling people's SD cards out and checking them and deleting pictures and maybe even keeping the SD cards. And I think everybody else is retaliating
on everybody else that might not be the right person.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's some of that going on.
I think. Oh, go ahead. Good.
I was gonna say I did get a picture of actually quite a few pictures of a Big 10 on one of the cameras that wasn't tampered with, and he's a real good buck, but at the same time, it's like seems like there's a lot of people in that area, and I have another area. I just checked some cards today and did a little scouting, and I have 3 shooters in there. They're not as big, but for this year, I'm just looking for a good mature buck. They're big, beefy body bucks and some heavy racks, just short beams and short tines, but mature bucks. That's this year. I kind of just want to get away from the pressure and just try and shoot a good buck.
Well, but no, you can't, Mason. You said when you came back from Colorado and you shot, so for anyone that doesn't know, Mason shot a big drop tine mule deer in Colorado, and you said your goal is to shoot a drop tine whitetail.
Oh.
So don't try to just backtrack. I think he's feeling lazy.
Just because you didn't pick one up on camera yet, don't rule it out.
I don't know if I've ever had a picture.
Because he shot all the big bucks in his area, someone else's area. There were none left.
That's
shot them all.
That's my stretch goal.
That's okay. All right, gotcha. Yeah, that's your stretch goal.
I'm still looking for that drop tine buck.
So if anyone's got one and want to send Mason some coordinates and challenge him with it and see if he can do it, send him over, right?
Yeah, send him my way.
I talked to Beau the other day. I said, man, have a lot of spots. Don't. Even though I got 4 or 6 spots, man, it's good. And like all of them are already gone, whether logging or the guy drug his ladder stand in and put it up. And then, we put a little pressure on one, and I don't know if that had too much to do with it, but then now we're transitioning into maybe more rut and out of the summer thing. So things change fast. And now I found myself like, oh man, now I got to go back to the drawing board. But if you got enough, I have other spots. I just need to check them. But man,
what's the advice you gave me? Because you gave me some really strong advice over text, and I wasn't sure if you were saying it just like out of like, just talking through, or if you were like somehow concerned for me. Like I wasn't sure where the motives came from, but it was good. It was good advice.
I forget what was it, Bo?
You said, don't put pressure on yourself. Don't hunt spots that you're not confident in. Scout way more than you hunt. Something along those lines. But it was like a poem.
Wow. Johnny's becoming a poet.
Yeah, like it was good. I felt like relief when I read it. I'm like,
yeah, I remember. Yeah, I said have a lot of. I forget what I said.
I got an idea. Every one of these water bottle calls you sell, put a poem on the back of it. It's a poem on every one
There
of
we
them.
go.
Johnny's signature water bottle.
Yeah.
We'll sell them through
Call.
Timber Ninja.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
The Johnny Stewart signature water bottle.
What was I telling a guy today?
Kind of like a fortune cookie. What poem's on this water bottle?
I was telling a guy today that won one of Bill's veterans hunt, and I told him, good kid, hunted with him last winter. I said, Jake, you ever need any help, give me a call. So he's down in Tennessee trying to get a deer, and I said, he's hunting this little patch of woods. It's kind of fields around, and that buck's laying in that patch. And I was telling him, he's like, man, I said, he got all the chips. You only got a couple chips, but you're still playing poker. I said, you can win, though, but he's got, he got the odds. And you got to give him most of the chips where he feels comfortable playing, man. I'm winning. You know what I mean? But you still got a couple chips. You're still in the game, but you could still win with them couple chips. But you got to kind of give him, like I was telling him about the wind, how you got to, give him what he wants, but you got a little bit on your side. You have a couple chips. He got all the chips, and, maybe he's here and the wind just kind of goes like this and you're here, you know what I mean? And he was asking me about this spot, and I was telling him, he was, good kid. He was saying, man, he's like, man, I had to call you, John, because this is a hard spot. I know this buck's living there, and I just can't get to him. It was surrounded by fields, maybe just a few little acre piece of timber. I was like, well, Jake, that's how it usually is. I said, when you find a big deer, where he's maybe bedding this, I said, sometimes I want to cry because it's like, I know he's there, but I can't set up on him. I can't get to him. The thermal's right. The wind's right. He can hear me coming, this and that. He's like, no way. He was laughing. He's like, are you serious? He's like, I thought it was just my case I had here. That's why I called you. I didn't know this was something that happened, and this is how they were. I'm like, no, this is how when you find them, you can't get to them. I said, you got a tough situation. He's playing there, and I said, but that's how they. Oh, man, I had no clue. I thought I was just dealing with this smart deer, and it just happened to be that he was in an area that I couldn't get to him. I said, no, that's where they live when you can't get to them. All right, I got it now. Yeah. It was funny.
Johnny, I'd say hunting big bucks is more like a game of cinch than poker because it only takes one good hand to get them to win.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, wow, Mason. I thought I was just about to compliment Johnny that was something I hadn't heard, because he always comes up with these new sayings that are like really relatable that bring back to regular life. But I think Mason one-upped you there.
Yeah,
with
if
the
you
cinch
don't have
comment.
enough chips, you can't go all in.
I
You're
know.
going to still have chips left.
Yeah.
That might even be the title of the podcast: "Hunting Big Bucks Like Playing Cinch."
Yeah.
That's right.
I ain't never played Cinch, so I don't know.
I don't really know how to play. I've played, but I don't really know. So
I'm still getting back at you for that Ricochet comment.
I forgot all about that. I mean, I moved on, Mason. I mean, we're bros. He's holding a grudge on me, and
I've been stomping around my house thinking about it all year.
Yeah. I don't even remember, honestly.
All year he's been bothering.
Yeah,
Every time I run into him, he's like,
Yeah. I can't wait till we have another podcast. I'm going to get back at him.
yeah, he's been thinking about that comment all year. Yeah. So yeah, but he went out and got it done on his buck last year. So you would have thought that would have been enough, payback, but I guess not. But all right, so I was asking some questions to some people on Instagram about like the rut and stuff, and just I love seeing like where I get say 100 messages coming back and seeing the trends and questions. One big one was about the rut specifically, is like what you consider a rut funnel and like where you want to sit, like thinking of November specifically, like what do you consider a place that you want to sit all day that you would consider like a funnel for the deer? Does it, is that necessarily like where terrain is pinching them down or vegetation, or is it none of that and it's just something else? I see all you guys kind of stewing around here thinking, does anybody have something that comes to mind?
terrain is a big one for me. Everybody knows saddles, and that is a travel area. But you get these subtle saddles that maybe aren't so obvious and or not even really that wide. If it's going from one valley and transition into another valley over the top, that to me it has been a one of the target spots, I guess, that I look at. Put boots on the ground, whether you roll it out or end up sitting there. You have to look at it and see what signs there, I guess. And then the creek bottoms, which are all difficult to hunt. You got to play the thermals. You got to play the depending on how sharp the hillside is or how wide the valley is, what you can get away with. But I do like my bottoms.
What do you think about the bottoms? Like, just anywhere in the creek bottom, or why?
I'm looking where different valleys meet. A hub.
Yeah.
And there's usually a community scrape in that area, typically. Pretty much where you find a community scrape is their travel area, whether it's in the bottom or up top or wherever it is. If you got a scrape that's being worked every year and good sized licking branches busted off or multiple scrapes within a 10-yard area, then you definitely know that's a travel zone. And set up off of that if you can't actually hunt that particular one because of the wind direction. But playing off of that and looking for the sign leading into it, out of it, whatever it may be. But terrain features is a big one, and where the does are, the other part of it. I'm talking with the scrapes is leading up to the rut, which they still check them throughout when they're on lockdown and doing the mating breeding. But it seems like that's the transition areas or going where the does are, where the does are. That's going to attract the bucks. So, just take a note of your does throughout the summer and the fall and, concentrating on that.
Yeah. What about you, Mason? Do you pay attention to terrain or any sort of vegetation as far as like your rut setups?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the stuff I look at is pretty similar to what he just said. The one setup I really like during the rut too, especially like when you think they're chasing, is getting on the downwind side of a doe bedding area. Like say there, where some does are bedding in a clear cut.
Yeah.
If you can get on the downwind side of that where it meets the edge of a steep hill or something, that's just like a classic spot. I always feel good about spending the whole day in.
Mm-hmm, that makes sense.
Yeah. What about you, John?
Well, I was thinking about up here, everything Joe kind of talks about, but also now that, man, there's not as much terrain in some of these areas. There's starting to be a lot of roads. I'm finding areas in between roads, like a seam where you got a road here, then maybe another oil well road, 100 yards or so, where the deer might want to sneak right through there, and then access is a issue. You can even be laying there to where any vehicle comes up the road, so you might have to park a little ways down the road. But if you got two roads, the way these oil well roads are here, you might just have to get in between one where you feel like
So it's like a road funnel. Like you almost would think that'd be like the same thing as if you had like a cut and a creek, and you have a side hill. It's like it's kind of acts as the same thing.
Yeah. Pressure funnel.
Yeah, it's a pressure.
Yeah. So I kind of look at them as like a seam, like two things meet. Here's this road here, and in between. But also a place I'm looking at in Ohio, I think I'm onto a good deer is just in between two, kind of what they were saying, but close to two bedding doe areas, to where he can, an older, more lazy deer that is really not lazy, but just smart and efficient, to where this one area I'm hunting, it's kind of like, I feel like he's hanging out here and he got a thicket down in here and one here, and there's feed out on a point to where I could just see him just like this triangle, and just being close to all them does without having to go.
The transition areas.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think it definitely comes down to, for me, depending on the area, whether it's a spot that has a lot of terrain or doesn't, because those are two completely different animals. And I think areas that don't have a lot of terrain are honestly kind of harder as far as like finding what those funnels are. Like if I'm going to a place where I don't know, if I'm going out of state and I don't have a whole lot of experience, I'm not 100% sure where the does are bedding, like I obviously want to find them when I get there, but what I'm marking on Spartan Forge and I'm looking for are those traditional like terrain funnels to start, and then I overlay the map with with the trees on to see if there's like what Mason talked about, say a side hill that pinches against a clear cut, or hemlocks or something that gives like that breakup in all of that stuff. But in areas that I know well, personally, I try to find the does first, and now I look at it from more of a micro level of like, what's the best path from point A to point B where they feel safe. And it might be just this little ditch that kind of runs through and runs, between these areas, or the edge of a cut. And then, more so I'm finding with the cuts, it's like, I need to be able to shoot to the interior of that thick stuff versus just on the edge. Like, and there's always a lot of times there stands on the edge already. You got to think a little bit outside the box and how you can, get in there and be able to access it. But I've found, like, for me, I like benches a lot that I can find a good bench that's in between something, at the top of a draw like that. That to me is like especially you get to a place that has like some real good terrain differentiators there, and you got a steep draw that's coming up and a trail around the top, like a ring, a trail that goes over it. Man, I love sitting those and that's a spot for me that I don't even care to be there first thing in the morning. That's like a middle of the day because they're cruising between doe bedding areas. There's not normally deer laying there unless it's thick and choked with mountain laurel or something. Then it might be a bedding area too, but most of the time that's kind of like, that's a really good all day spot. I'm thinking of how they're getting from, point A to point B, so to speak. And, that's kind of how I look at those places. And then like the creek bottoms, just like you said, and obviously I learned that from you, is like those places where you find those scrapes and that just has things that all meet at one spot, and, and honestly, another area that I would consider a funnel that a lot of time has to do with terrain and vegetation, but sometimes it doesn't, is just finding area where there's a lot of trails that intersect. And sometimes it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from like, it's not this giant terrain feature that just funnels them down. It's just like, there's a lot of doe trails that kind of come across here, and it's, that seems like a good place for a buck to scent check if he's looking for a hot doe. And just, setting up on those types of things, especially in the subtle terrain areas where there's not a whole lot of steep ridges and hills like that. To me, it's like, that's kind of a no-brainer. And a lot of times that's in the center of a clear cut even. It's like they're crossing, because they don't just always run the outside edge around the outside of the cut. They're like, I need to get over there. I'm just going to go right through it, and follow some logging roads or trails or whatever. That's what I try to think about when I'm looking for these spots. And for as long as I've hunted, I'm sure you guys are in the same boat. Like, coming into this year, I don't have one spot that I'm like, man, I can't wait to sit there for 5 days. Like, I don't have that right now. And it's like, I'm still, even though I have all these spots, but I need to see what it's looking like at that time of year to, make that decision and go.
Yeah, you got to get that feeling.
You got to get that. Yeah, you got to get that feeling.
Kind of like everybody's saying, like, we're in the second, going into the third week, and we're all still scouting. We're all still looking.
We're in that anxious state.
Yeah.
What's going to turn up, or what?
But that, like, it just tells you, like, as I say, don't stop. Just, like, that's what we're. Things change, and keep checking. But you're not raping the woods. You're probing. You're just going in. Where you can check your cameras. You're not going into the middle of a doe bedding area and checking camera. You know what I mean?
Johnny.
What is that? But yeah, you're scouting these areas with, like, mindful of how you're getting your cameras. And this time of year, we're not like summer or spring scouting where you just maybe go anywhere.
Right. Yes.
We kind of got a plan in mind to attack these cameras. We're always watching the wind, and it's not just, and even where we park and that, because we're just trying to learn as much as we can, but not ruin it, because this could be a spot that we're hunting. So you got to be mindful of what you're doing right now, even though we're all doing it and we're scouting.
Well, talk about. Sorry, you can go ahead.
No, yeah, you need, like, these doe bedding areas. If you know where the does are hanging out, where they're feeding and that, you may not be able to hunt that until a certain wind. Or you may have multiple locations where any wind is good around that area, depending on thermals, but most of the time it's one wind that you can hunt a certain area, and you wait for that time. You don't push. You might push it a little bit as far as like a crosswind, but there's a lot of times you just got to pick your time to go in there. Based off the wind direction.
Yeah. And it might be like we got all these spots, but you might only hunt it one time, so you need all these spots. Or then, if you do mess it up or you bump the deer, then that one's done, or someone else moves, and that's why you just need I think that's what I was telling you in a text, like have a lot of spots, and but you do, but
and have a list, of your locations and what wind directions do work for that, because in the heat of the moment, or I guess when it's starting to get into the heat of the rut. Your mind just starts scrambling. It helps to pull that note out and say, okay, it's a northeast wind today.
Where can I
tomorrow? This is now you just narrowed your 10 spots down to maybe 2.
Yeah, it'll help you out.
Or whatever. You can narrow it down and then concentrate on those couple.
And then when you have these spots, then you can hunt it on a certain weather, a certain wind, a certain this or that, to. And then, like Joe said, you end up narrowing your 20 spots down to 4 or 5.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like you just made like a really good point. Like in addition to just what the wind direction is, look at wind speed. It's like, all right, we get over 10 mile per hour wind. I'm probably not going to hunt in the bottom because it's going to get really swirly and weird down there. So it's like, okay, that I'm going to cross those areas off, and I'm looking like, so yeah, you have 30 spots, and it's like, okay, now I'm narrowed down to 3 of them. Now making the decision between those 3 is not always the easiest thing. And you're in the truck and you're white knuckling, like, do I make a right? Do I make a left? What are you going to do? But it does help kind of get you rolling through that. And, I think, Johnny, I think like what you said about like us, scouting going forward, like, I think that should make people feel better, that feel like they're lost at this point, being able to go, because all of us are in that same position.
We're all lost at this point.
And I think and then it's pretty rare you can be really confident going into the rut because everything's changing. So it's like it's very situational on what is happening at that point and moving on it, and then all of a sudden works out, and then you act like you knew the whole time.
Even now it's changing from what I did early, almost summer into just turning into fall, early season. But in another thing, I had all these spots. I was able to, in the hot weather, I was able to pick, okay, where can I go where it's cool for a deer? I'd like to even hunt midday because I know he's going to be close. So you get all these spots, not talking about pre-rut or rut, but I had enough spots that I can say, okay, there was a lot of east wind this year. Where can I go? Okay, I want to catch him returning to a bed on the east wind or southwest. I want to catch him leaving his bed, and I want to catch him in a midday. Where's it going to be? It's going to be 80 degrees, and it helped me having all these spots. I was really focused on early season, and then it was able to, okay, well, I only got 3 spots to go, or 2 spots because of what's going on, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's what helps when you're not chasing a specific deer, of like being like, I don't know, I feel like that makes it, like, I like that aspect of it. It's when this respect of, okay, you're just going off of all right, here's what the environment's giving me right now. I just make a decision based off of that. And it might be 20 miles this way, it might be 30 miles that way. But in your case, Johnny, might be a whole nother state, and being able to do that. And one other thing that someone brought up, and I really liked this question, was because this is something that I've made work, and I think positively on. I remember one time, I want to say the hunt was like in 2015 or 16. There was an area, I was talking to you, Dad, that I was hunting, and I knew does bedded in these blowdowns, but I was like, I don't think I can get in there without blowing them out. And it's like, do you still hunt it, during the rut? It's like, do you just, if you blow out these does? And you were like, yeah, go. The bucks are going to think that they're laying there and come look. And I've taken that with me from this point, forward. Like, if I blow out some does, I'm really not that concerned. Right. Like, obviously I'm not trying to, but like, I don't get worked up if I blow out some does, because those bucks know where those does are bedding, and they're
Yeah.
just coming to check those areas. No, you're obviously not going to want to go in there and blow them out 3 days in a row. They're probably not going to, be there, and eventually that'll, carry over. But I think you're good for a few days of being able to do that. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think you're better off being all up in it like that than being not in the action,
Yeah, snorts and stuff that don't scare.
No,
that just,
I think
I've seen
all of
bucks.
us have encounters where you heard it deer snort and blow for a while, and then finally it leaves, and then 10 minutes later, here comes a buck through.
Even during a rut, I've seen a doe snort and a buck come running. Like, where's she at? Looking, like throwing caution in the wind and just, hey, there's a deer
saw
over
that
here.
trail camera video. I don't know if I showed you guys that I had last year, that Big 10 that I was hunting. So at the time this goes out, the video from last year, we'll talk about that a little bit. But this buck, this giant deer I've been hunting for 3 years, day before rifle season opened, he's chasing a doe, coming across my camera, and I had it on audio.
Yeah.
And she turned and snorted at him, and he just got all riled up. Like that was normal, that she was like, basically get away from me kind of, and snorting at him, and there was a train of bucks coming behind, so like I don't think that's especially during the rut, and bucks' heads are a little bit wonky at that point. They hear that snort, they're like, doe,
Yeah,
I gotta go.
yeah. Anything can happen.
Not, maybe, I don't know, maybe it probably affects them a little bit more in the early season. They hear a snort and danger. They're turned on a little bit smarter with their senses at that point.
Is that something you guys would think about adding to your call arsenal?
Snorting,
I blow back at a deer if I hear him blowing.
I do the same exact thing.
Yeah.
I've never tried it.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, it's actually, I'm interested to hear what you say, Dad, but like when I've done it, what they'll do is they'll kind of get like, what the hell? Like they're like, then they blow back, and I just mimic exactly what they do back and forth. And sometimes that'll calm them right down. Sometimes it doesn't matter and they're gone. But like I will do that anytime a deer snorts at me.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Make the snort call.
Don't be telling those kind
Put
of
one on the market.
podcast. We'll talk about this afterwards.
You somehow modify the water bottle for that? Multiple use?
I could like water bottle / snort call.
Yeah.
We could probably do a combo.
I like it.
Take a drink.
Yeah. Hey, don't knock it. That might be something.
Be out there in a rut and snorting all day.
I think there's going to have to be some. There's going to have to be some type of manual with this, when to use it, when not to use it.
Yeah, so instructions.
Whatever company came out with like that scrape tree that you put in food plots would probably come out with something like that.
Yeah.
You'll have to get it trademarked.
I got a couple of scrape trees. I carry them up in the forest. And plastic trees.
Oh yeah.
I got to have a dozen of them.
Yeah, you don't got enough beach trees around. You got to carry a mock one up.
Yeah.
I could see you doing that.
Yeah.
Oh man, what are your thoughts on decoys?
They could be really good and they could really hurt you. I've had real good success, and I had them just. I've had. Well, I guess I got the doe decoy and a buck decoy, the Montana decoys, the freshman buck, and then the doe decoy. And sometimes if the buck's just cruising by himself and he sees the buck decoy, he may come right in to fight it. But if there's a doe being chased and she's coming and sees that buck decoy, I've had him skirt around me, and then the buck's following her, so there's no shot. So it can help, but it can hurt. I mean, that's my experience with it. I've sprayed them. I usually spray them both down with buck urine instead of doe. I never have any luck with the doe urine. It seems like I get deer that spook. But with the buck urine, it seems like it works. But I've had a buck level both of my decoys because of that. It was in the gray light, and he come right under my tree, and he just tore up my decoys, flattened them both. And wasn't a shooter, which it wasn't light enough to shoot anyways, but I had to get back down and set him back up.
That's funny.
I get about halfway down the tree, and it's like, wait a minute. And I went back up, lowered my bow down, knocked an arrow just in case he was still hanging around close. Because you don't know that state of mind.
Yeah.
Might come rip you up too.
Yeah.
With those spots though, like what makes you take a decoy versus not taking a decoy?
I don't know. I mean, it's probably where there's a good visual for them. I'm just trying to think of some of my situations. Sometimes I have them in my pack, but I may never set it up. It's just a feeling for me, I guess. If I think it's going to work, or if, I don't know. It's more of a situational, but I'm not sure if I can put it into words right now.
I can think of a few encounters I've had where it's like a more open area, and they're skirting me like too far to shoot, and I'll try and call at them, and the buck will stop and look down, but he's on a mission. He kind of knows where he wants to go, and he just kind of keeps going. I always wondered, like, if I had a decoy up, would that have changed that situation?
Yeah, and I think, like, for me, you're talking about those unhuntable spots, but you might be able to get 80 yards off and be in a huntable location. But if you can get that decoy and a visual of that spot, that those are the types of areas I think about when I'm using decoy, or if I'm in an opening, where it's like, okay, especially I think creek bottoms, it seems like when I bring decoys quite a bit, because sometimes, especially hemlock ones, you can't see up the hill, but they can see down underneath the hemlock. So it's like you might have something cruising it you can't even see. So it's like if I have that visual, that decoy down there, and I usually carry a doe decoy versus the buck. I have both of them, and I know you seem to use the buck more than the doe.
Yeah.
But like that's the and I guess the other question for you would be is like, how do you face that decoy? Does that just all depend on where you want them to get a visual, or do you like make it so it's quarter and away or two or whatever?
I think I have it to where it's maybe like facing directly at me, so that they get the whole side view of it, and I'm not looking at the side of the deer, because if they're coming the way I expect them to come, you want to be able to see it. Now, as far as like, it used to be, was primary at the buck decoy, but when I had several chases and the doe skirted them, I've changed my thinking and more set on the doe decoy. And then once again, situational. Like the buck I did shoot last year, I just had the doe decoy set out. I don't know if it helped or not. He come into a grunt, and he come right to my scent wick between me and the decoy, and I shot him. I don't even know if he's seen the doe decoy, to be honest with you. He may have, but he didn't react to it. He didn't go straight to it.
Yeah.
He actually come to my scent wick before he, when he went to it, I don't know. But so, I mean, my thinking kind of changes on that year to year. If I get burned or not, or if it helps me, then it's like, oh yeah, this is the best thing. And then the next time you put it out, it screws it all up for you.
Yeah.
So, and I think the timing, to me, like this time of the year, I think it's a little too early for a decoy, in my opinion. I could be totally wrong on that. I've never had any luck early season. It's more during the rut.
Yeah, middle of October is too early for it.
I mean, that's just, but I guess I've tried and just had never had any positive experience. I guess I never had negative either, though. But I don't use it early season like this, or mid-October. But
I'd be curious to hear what's everybody's moves the next 5 to 7 days here. What's the game
Boots
plan?
on the ground, maybe a little bit of hunting in the morning, evening, and man, check areas that I don't have cameras, previous historical areas that I know good deer are in there anyways. Like you said, like a good 30 class mass 8 or something. I'm gonna, I got some bigger ones, but man, I like to shoot something, so just keep. Maybe hunt till noon, 10, and 10 to 12 or something in the morning if I feel like I got a decent spot. Do some hiking, and then get back in there for the evening. But move some cameras around. I might be here just 3 days and leave and come back and let them soak for 4 or 5 days. Or if I'm seeing onto something I like, and the next day or so, my scouting, maybe I'll stay a little longer. So,
yeah. And do you, I guess, like, what was I going to say with that? I don't know. I guess, Mason, let's transition to you while I'm thinking of my thought.
Yeah, I'm kind of like Johnny. I'm kind of I'm just checking out my spots right now, boots on the ground. If I had some more days off than just Saturdays, I'd be doing exactly what Johnny said. I love mornings. That's my favorite time to hunt. I'd be hunting mornings until 10 or whenever I thought I sat long enough, and then I'd spend the middle of the day through into the afternoon just kind of walking around putting boots on the ground. And I might sit the afternoons, or I might kind of just recharge and hunt again the next morning. But I'd be covering ground right now, trying to set myself up for later.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Dad?
I'm with these guys. I'd be checking cameras. I'd be checking new spots. With if it's a rainy day, doing a lot of boots on the ground, still hunting and looking for a hot sign. And if you find a hot sign, hope you either set up on it that evening or immediately if you have your saddle with you, and or the next day, looking for a hot sign. And I'm thinking back over the years. It's I've seen them scrapes ripped up October 23rd and bucks rutting October 23rd. They're starting to come in there, and I think that from that time to the 1st of November is golden for us to search. I guess you get those few doe coming in and a lot of bucks around. Where later on, where you got a larger group, and then they're all kind of on lockdown. But no, I guess in the next 5 to 7 days, boots on the ground, finding a hot sign, and checking cameers.
I think if you find the right spot too, you got to put some time into it too. Like you just made me think of actually tonight, which is pretty fresh in my mind. I probably should have thought about it earlier. It was I'm finding some of that fresh sign tonight, and I'm looking at it. It's like I don't know how to. As much as I like mornings, I don't think you can hunt this spot for a morning just because the way your access is. I feel like who knows where the deer are, when you're walking in, and it's. I just feel like they'd hear you or see you or something getting in there. But it sets up perfect for an afternoon stand. I was scouting around and I was like, I found some nice scrapes, and it's like he's climbing up this point. And it's gradual. It's not steep or anything. It's a smaller hill, and he's just coming up this point and laying down some scrapes going up the point, and a little rub here, a little rub there. And I found a bed maybe 250 yards away from here, probably 200 yards away. And I found the bed. I'm like, it's a pretty big bed, but there's nothing here that's telling me that this is a buck. And then I started looking around harder, and you could see some rubs leaving that bed, and I was like, this kind of sets up perfect for an afternoon stand, where this is something I can crawl up here right after work, but when I have an hour and a half or 2 hours to hunt, maybe if I can leave a little bit early. And I'm going to throw some sits at that spot and just see what it is. Nothing was telling me it's a real big buck there, but it's worth throwing some afternoon sits at, I think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't dedicate a day off to it, but if I can get in there just real quick after work, I think it's worth sitting.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Like for me right now, and I know, so this podcast isn't coming out till Halloween, so it's going to be a little bit past information, but just thinking about, like, to me, it's all weather based as far as a lot of sitting right now. Like I'm looking at, again, I think Monday is looking like it's 5 days out now, so that could change, but it's looking like, high in the or low 50s, low in the around freezing, frosty morning. I'm like, I need to find a hot sign to sit that day. Yeah. Like I need to be
Sunday
there.
Looks good too.
Sunday obviously always looks good in Pennsylvania when you can't hunt.
Yeah.
But it seriously does. It always rains all day Saturday. Mm-hmm. Sunday's perfect. Yeah. But for me this time of year is like end of October kind of going into it's just like I just want to be moving until I find the good stuff, and then might sit a little bit, but I'm a little bit more just kind of freelancing around and moving and doing things than when it comes to I feel like as it gets to that Halloween time frame on, I feel like I am sitting more than I'm moving at that point. Hopefully I have my homework done, and I'm looking for those deer to transition a little bit more.
Time will fly here now.
I do have a couple areas that I'm going to kind of zone in on, based off of the fawns I had, when they were born and going back to 200 days. And it's looking like, these deer were bred, the early, I guess.
Yeah.
This third week of October.
Yeah.
So, those still alive, they could be dead or whatever, but so I am going to concentrate on some of them areas. I have 2 of them identified this year for that. Will pan out, who knows?
I know last year we had that cold front like 17, 18, 19, and that was, I think, those came in maybe around the 20th in my area. I'd say there was a few that popped off right there, and it was, man, pretty hot,
So, having that type of information, though, I think helps.
Yeah.
Maybe narrow some spots down.
Yeah, definitely. You can get some bucks concentrated in that area.
From what I heard, and I don't know, they should come in every year at the same time. Those. So.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
But
I think, like Beau said, if you can cherry pick the days, as you're scouting around, you find the hot sign, make sure you're there. Give yourself a chance. That's what I'd be looking at.
What is the weather like the next 2 days? Supposed to be rainy, wet?
I can't hunt it, so I haven't even looked at it.
Yeah, same here.
Sorry, John.
You're gonna have to drive back to some civilization, get the weather report.
Yeah, I do. I think it's gonna be a little bit wet. It's good, like Joe. He's always good with still hunting, so it might be something I might have to do here.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, at least take the saddle. I think I got 3 of them 20-inch sticks.
I did have an encounter that. What day was it? I don't know. Was it Saturday? Maybe. I was still hunting because it was raining. Yeah, it was Saturday. It rained all day, but it wasn't like a torrential downpour. But it rained, so I was still hunting, checking cameras, and I seen a deer out front. Probably his first spot is about 35 yards away. So I started. Wind was perfect, crosswind. Started stalking up on it, and Christ, the brows on it were like, yes.
Oh yeah,
man.
Yeah, and I'm getting closer and getting closer, but no main beams.
Yeah.
Just a big spike. But I did practice my stalking strategy.
Yeah.
I got within 20. I was probably like 18 before he finally blew out, and I could have put an arrow in if it would have been
cool.
a shooter.
Awesome.
Yeah. But so I did have one encounter with a buck so far this year, as far as
one of those 11 pointers.
Yeah, 11 pointer.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.